phones off for the next hour. Take that opportunity, we would appreciate it. At this time, I'd also like to thank Northern Stage Theatre for providing us the venue for this significant event. Every year, a student is selected to kick off the ceremonies to provide a few words of wisdom to their fellow classmates, and this year, Lawrence Dirks was asked to do so.
Okay. Before I start, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge our classmates and fellow cartoonists who were unable to attend graduation today. So Carolyn and Katie Perry, who I think is in the first year, good luck wherever you are. With that out of the way, I have to say how honored I am to have been chosen as the person least likely to pee himself in terror while speaking in public. It is a title I'm proud to carry, and I hope to live up to. And I would also like to remind people, least likely, not the same as won't. So let's be brutally honest. I'm a little surprised to be the class speaker. From what I gathered from various YouTube videos in the last 10 minutes of Legally Blonde, class speakers are meant to inspire and be their classmates' biggest cheerleader as they leave their school for the real world. Unfortunately, I am not that guy. I am just not that positive a person. In fact, I'm super negative. It's something that I tell people all the time, usually after the third date. But luckily, while I may not be the most inspiring person all the time, I have been fortunate enough to have been taught by cartoonists who are a constant source of inspiration. So I'm just going to go for a sure thing and repeat what Dave said and pass it off as my own. Something I affectionately call the Bob Kane. Sound good? And for those of you who don't read comics, that's really funny. Although we are graduating, I must remind my fellow cartoonists that our fearful trip is far from done. There is still more work ahead and more comics to be drawn. However, do not be afraid. Oh no! Because you are the captain of your own ship. Jason Lutz, with a little help from Walt Whitman, said these words to us in our first year here at the Center for Cartoon Studies, and it basically got me through the first year, despite all my doubts and inferiority complexes. No matter what people say about your comics or suggestions they might give you, they are still your comics. You get to make the decision. Yeah, sometimes thinking about it makes it harder, but it's nice to know out of all the things in life you can't control, your comics aren't one of them. And while you're making your comics and steering that ship, you might run into some troubled water. And I swear that is the last sailing metaphor in this entire speech. Sorry, man. However, do not let these problems take over. I know it's easier said than done, but it's important that you work through them because you'll find that your comics will love you back. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to repeat Alec Longstreet's entire speech because I know if I did, all of you would walk off the stage straight into the studio and just start drawing comics. Alec's passion for comics is truly infectious, and he passed it on to all of us. Although that's to be expected, we all work closely together, and he doesn't always cover his mouth when he coughs. But don't feel bad about it. At this point, some of your friends and family might be thinking, well, I'm glad they spent all that time and money to be passionate about comics. I hope CCS also taught them how to panhandle. To those people, I said, yes they did, but we call it professional practices. And then I would point them all to the life and career of Steve Bissett. He's been working in the comics industry for over 35 years with no end in sight. He's seen the industry at its best and at its worst, and survived every single change. Through comics, not only has he been able to support his family, but a robust DVD collection. And it is this award-winning cartoonist that called our class the Justin Bieber of comics. And for those of you who aren't 13-year-old girls, that means we're really, really cool. And hopefully that also means we're really, really rich. Speaking of Justin Bieber, James Stern has also been an inspiration to everyone here at CCS. In fact, if it wasn't for him and Michelle Ollie, there would be no Center for Cartoon Studies. So seriously, thank you for that. And I will never forget James' inspiring words that he told our class earlier this year. Why would you guys be interested in speaking to an agent? None of you are ready for agents. It's not like any of you are the next Art Crumb. I mean, you guys know that, right? You are the captain of your ship. Your comics will love you back. Justin Bieber of comics, and you are not the next Art Crumb. Okay, one of these quotes is not like the other. But before we all start calling James Sturm's names and throwing things at him, which if you will kindly look at your programs isn't until after the ceremony, I think what he was trying to say is that being a good cartoonist and making great comics won't guarantee us success. Comics are hard, and he's absolutely correct. Comics may love us, but that doesn't stop it from roughing us up every now and then. In comics defense, it's had to work a lot of late nights recently, and sometimes I just talk too much. Realistically, we'll probably have to take work outside of comics just so we can even afford to make comics. Maybe we'll get lucky and our comics will break even. But there's a good chance we'll be producing these things at a loss. See, this is what I mean by super negative. Knowing how hard life as a cartoonist is, does anybody here even want to draw comics anymore? Because I know I do. What about you guys? You all agree. I'm going to have to ad-lib the rest of this speech. I'm joking. I knew what you guys were going to say because I know how dedicated each and every one of you is to comics. And that's why, because out of all the cartoonists that I've taught or visited at the Center for Cartoon Studies, none of them have inspired me more than all of you. My classmates, my fellow cartoonists, and my friends. How many early mornings and sleepless nights did we spend working on comics just for them to be ripped apart by a teacher? And the only reason we did all that was so we could even spend more early mornings and sleepless nights working on comics just for them to be ripped apart by the world. Or the world that reads comics. It's because of this drive that I know everyone on the stage is going to go on to make amazing comics. And while none of us will ever be the next Art Crumb, there's nothing stopping us from making the next generation of cartoonists wish they were the next Pat Barrett, the next Beth Hetland, or the next Carol Thompson. I would have said all your names, but I'm only allowed 5 minutes for the speech, and I was afraid of messing up Lena's and Kevin's last names. Whether it be big or small, I know we're all going to make a difference in comics. And who knows, maybe in 100 years from now, when they thaw out James Sturm's cryogenically frozen head, we'll be in front of the future class of CCS and say, "Oh God, why did they only freeze my head? Please just let me die." And maybe, just maybe, after that, he'll say, "You guys are good, but come on, it's not like you're the next class of 2011. I mean, you guys know that, right?" And they will, because our class is the jam. But you really don't have to say that kind of stuff out loud. And in the words of Steve Bissett via Dave Sim, just one more thing and I'll let you go. First cartoonist in the class of 2011 to get a publishing deal owes the rest of us drinks. Deal? Deal? And in true Steve tradition, despite what I just said, there's still so much more I want to say. But however, I think it can only truly be expressed through dance.
Appropriate they're on stage.
Jason, John, Michelle, Steve, and Val up on the stage.
Come. What's the amazing thing about CCS is all of these wonderful people, our faculty and staff.
They've given us so much in just a short time.
The best PowerPoints we have ever seen.
The most heartfelt lectures we've ever heard.
The strangest movies we've ever stomached.
And a list of what John Schaff likes and does not like.
I know my classmates would agree that if it weren't for all of you, we wouldn't be here today.
There's no way we can even start to express how much you've meant to all of us.
And how we'll keep your advice and knowledge close to our hearts forever.
So, we made you a... I thought this was an assembly line.
we'll pass it down, yeah. We didn't practice.
Sorry. We made you a complete deck of trading cards of the class of 2011 so that you can keep us close to your hearts forever.
So we just wanted to say, oh captains, my captains.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
Oh captain!
Wow. Thank you for this. This is very touching. If I was to say a few comments now, let me get my notes. One thing we do pride ourselves on at CCS is trying to be really responsive to the students' needs and what they're looking for creatively. So I think this is an opportune moment to announce officially that we're expanding our curriculum. We're going to be offering dance classes next year. And I bet you all dance better than our crumb. I don't know. I've never seen him dance, but he might be good. I actually yesterday morning I spent all morning writing out a heartfelt speech and talking about how much now it's time to bear down and it's a hard road ahead. And then I went to the senior luncheon yesterday, and basically Steve just gave an amazing talk, saying everything I'd hoped to say, but much more heartfelt and wonderful. And of course, Steve was in his talk. He was quoting John Cleese, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. And he was quoting a comedian, and I was realizing, God, I'm quoting Primo Levi in my. For those of you who don't know who he is, hide the razor blades when you read his work. But he did have one passage that did remind me of cartooning, and I'm it makes sense. I promise. He said, "What we commonly mean by understand coincides with simplify. Without profound simplification, the world around us would be an infinite, undefined tangle that would defy our ability to orient ourselves and decide upon our actions. In short, we are compelled to reduce the knowable to a schema." End quote. And as I read this, I thought to myself, this is what cartoonists do. We are compelled to figure out the world through making these simple drawings, putting them in little boxes, arranging them on a page, one after another, year after year, decade after decade, if we're lucky, and create and derive meaning from these boxes. This is how we figure out who we are. This is how we figure out where we belong. This is how we orient ourselves. And the great thing about this is that we share these little boxes with one another, and we gain inspiration and insight from one another. And this is the way that, at least speaking for myself, and I think a lot of cartoonists in this world, this is how we get through life. So as you go forward, class of 2011, and inevitably you get confused and lost and disoriented, just remember, read comics. Remember to make comics, and they will see you clear. So those are my final words to you guys. And it's been an honor, really, as well. I think I speak for all the faculty and staff when I say that. So now, it's with great pleasure that I get to introduce today's commencement speaker. When I was an undergraduate student, I came close to giving up comics. I graduated high school, and this is pre-internet age, and I'd grown out of reading the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, which material spoke very urgently to me in junior high and even high school. But when I got to college, it just didn't seem to speak to me in the same way. And I thought that comics could only do that, or maybe it could be Garfield or Archie. And I still remember the day in Madison, Wisconsin, that I came across a copy of Raw, the avant-garde comic anthology that our commencement speaker edited along with her husband, Spiegelman, in the early 1980s. And Raw introduced great new cartoonists and inventive approaches to making comics. Raw fundamentally changed the way our culture thought about comics. And it's hard for me to even imagine what CCS would be like without Raw. As an art editor of The New Yorker, our commencement speaker continues her crusade in opening people's eyes to the potential and power of comics. And a few years ago, when no publisher was smart enough to get behind her vision of a line of books that combined words and pictures to engage emerging readers, she launched her own imprint, Toon Books. So this woman is formidable, she is unstoppable, and she is this year's commencement speaker. So please give a warm welcome. It's my honor to welcome Francoise Mouly.
Well, thank you, James, and thanks to all of you. I'm truly honored to be here today, and I hope it really got to build up by James. When I look at all of you, I see that today is a day of rejoicing, a day in which you come back with the attention and pride of your family. I know it's a day to celebrate your accomplishment. So from the depths of my heart, you all you covered. But at the same time, I know that many of you must be terrified, probably as terrified as I am. I sympathize. You're going out to work well, it's in the midst of a recession, but there are very few jobs, and there are few openings. Everyone talks about like a campus death. I'm very flattered that James asked me to talk to you, but how am I supposed to inspire you in the face of such an uncertain future? I'm sure that you've been asked a few times already, and you will be, what are you going to do after graduation? And those of you who don't have a ready answer, that question is still your anxiety. You don't know where you're going to go next, and I'm but I can tell you what I know from my own experience. And sometimes when you're only truly, totally, utterly lost, that's when you have a chance to discover something new. And thinking back to when I was a student, I was studying architecture in Paris. My boyfriend and I lived together, so when he broke up with me, I was literally left with no place to live. I decided to go to New York not because I had any love for New York, but just because it was very far away from Paris. And my mom said to me, in New York, if you take a cab, lock the doors from the inside, because otherwise thieves are going to open the door and cut off your hands with a machete to steal your jewelry. So that was the New York of the 70s. You know, the Scorsese's taxi driver in New York, and it had a reputation to match. I was really terrified. I landed in JFK on September 2nd, 1974. I had maybe like $50 in my pocket, and all I had was a reservation I had mailed to the YMCA. So thanks to misinformation from French guidebooks, the YMCA wasn't a youth hostel, essentially, but it was more of a shelter for transient men. So of course they didn't have a reservation for me, and they did their best to shoo me back out onto the streets. They wanted nothing to do with a white girl who didn't speak any English. But I couldn't afford anything else, and I had no other place to go, so I pretended not to understand. Easy. And then eventually they had armed guard with their hands on their holsters take me into a room on the men's floor, clearing out the corridors, and they locked me into a room from the outside. And a room that had the size and the comfort and the feel of a jail cell, and that was my first night in New York. And the next day I went out for a walk, and I hadn't had a chance to catch my bearings, so I ended up in Hell's Kitchen, which was a hangout of the prostitutes and the truck drivers on their way to the Lincoln Tunnel. So my first taste of New York was the stinking, garbage-strewn streets of the devastated meatpacking district. And as I walked around, all of the events of the past day and night, and all of the fears and questions suddenly came together into one thought. I realized I could get killed right now, and no one would know. Nobody could identify my body. I wasn't carrying any ID. And it would be weeks or months before, like, my family or friends or anybody would know that I had been murdered. And that fear was so intense that it just stopped me right in the middle of the street. And I was looking into darkness, but just as suddenly, I also felt completely liberated, because the flip side of that thought was, well, if no one knows what happens to me, even if I die, then I'm only answerable to myself. Like, whatever I do, it's not for my teachers, it's not for my parents, it's not for my friends. I'm only accountable to myself. And in that moment of being totally lost, I actually found something that was very true for me. And even now, years later, when I'm immersed, Jamie was talking about, like, make sense of a lot of, like, trees and rocks and recognize each one and see where the sun is. And I'm constantly making maps, trying to figure out where I am. And it's not about getting from here to there, because I would take a road to get from point A to point B if I needed to get there. But it's about getting over my fear, and in the process, charting unknown territory. And the other day I found a stream that was in sunlight. It was like one of those idyllic pictures, and it's not too far from our cabin. And I would never have found this if I had followed the trails. So it's that kind of magic that I am searching for. And I've had moments in my life when I didn't know what would come next. And each was a useful turning point. The first couple of years in New York, I kept going back to Paris to resume my architectural studies. And each time I went back to school, I was told, oh, design a school, or design a neighborhood, or want to do a new city. And it felt preposterous. The assignments couldn't be taken seriously when I knew that the reality was much more prosaic. The best an architecture diploma I could get one was to work in an agency repeating the same old cookie-cutter designs. So I kept returning to New York, not knowing in the slightest what I wanted to do with my life, but loving the yielding and uncharted streets of the city, and trying to remain open to that sense of possibilities that I had felt on the first day. I took whatever job presented itself. I did models for a Japanese architecture agency. I sold cigarettes in a kiosk in Grand Central Station. I trained as a plumber and an electrician. As an actress in a play by Richard Foreman. And then I met Art. And Art had a day job at the bubblegum company, but he was at his core a cartoonist. At the time, he was putting together an anthology of his work, a book that was called Breakdowns. And each of the strips was a new invention, and each was done in a radically new style. And he showed me the classics, comic book masters, Winsor McKay and George Harriman and Lionel Feininger and Chester Gould, Harvey Kurtzman. And at the time, no one else knew or cared about comics. It really was so singular. And it was very far away from the pretentious discourse of the architects in Paris. So even my roommate was an artist of what was going on in the galleries of the time. But Art's work and all of the other cartoonists, the work that he showed me resonated. And that really felt true, and that's all that mattered. So I fell in love with art, and I fell in love with the magic of the medium, for which he was such an eloquent spokesman. And then I found one more thing to fall in love with. Art had me like cut hand separation in zippertone for the color pages of Breakdowns. And I loved it, and I found my métier in printing and print production and making things with my hands and creating books. It satisfied a deep longing. I took classes in a vocational school in Bed-Stuy, and I bought a printing press, which we then hoisted to our fourth floor walk-up loft. But here was a medium that allowed me to wake up one morning with a thought, and I could put it down on paper, and I would work long hours and get my hands very dirty, but at the end of the day I had booklets that I could bring to a store. It was a dream I didn't even know I had had. It was a power that I was really giddy with. Architects at the top of their game can be part of a team that builds a building, but as publishers or writers, as artists, as cartoonists, we can build the whole city. We can build the whole universe just by putting our ideas on paper. And I could publish and print booklets, and when I brought them to the store and I collected money if people wanted to buy them, I realized the enormous privilege that one has when one is read, when one finds an audience. So I threw myself into this field. And to earn a living, a friend suggested that I put together a map of my neighborhood. Soho was very new at the time, and everyone was getting lost in it. So making a map was an easy task for a former architect. I had to sell listings to the local business, and that was very hard. I tried to steel myself against the rejection, like I had to make cold calls and walk into the galleries and the stores. I tried to learn from every mistake, and quickly, because I couldn't fail, once I had started collecting money from some of the businesses, I had to pull the project off. So I pulled it off, and I had to find some way out of that thicket that I'd gotten myself lost in. So I published the Soho map for 13 years, and then I sold the business to someone who was still publishing it to this day. But it was a financial backing for all of my publishing, and maybe even more important, I realized that if I could do door-to-door selling, I probably could do anything. So I'd given myself the means and the funds to publish what I wanted, and at that point I was intoxicated with all the possibilities. I dragged Art into publishing a magazine, because he had edited one before, so he really knew the pitfalls. But together, we cobbled together something that would show the world how great comics could be. And that's what's now called the legendary Raw magazine. And then in 1993, Tina Brown came into the Raw office and offered me the job of art editor at the New Yorker. And I was lost again in that glamorous magazine world. I had to buy a whole new wardrobe and replace my ink-stained overalls. But Tina's mandate for me was open-ended. She had just published the first New Yorker cover by Art, and it was a huge success. It was a buzz all around town, and all she knew is that she wanted more of that. It was up to me to discover what that was. And over the past 18 years, I have found it, and I have given a clear voice for New Yorker covers. But of course, I couldn't stay found for long. So 12 years ago, I decided to lose myself in the world of children's book because I realized how great it had been for my children to read French comics and learn to read from that. So I founded the Courtney Raw Junior Division and published Little Lit and now Toon Books, and we're publishing our 14th and 15th book of comics for kids. And when I look back on it now and I look at all of those things that I have done over the past 30 years, I can see how in retrospect it looks like there was a clear path that led me from one thing to the next. But to you, who are about to embark on your own adventure, I can confess that at that time, at all those junctures, I was totally lost. I had no idea what I was going to do. And each time I started something, I was just hacking through the thickest with some notion, but no idea where I was going and how I was going to get there. Throughout all of it, I was battling people who were telling me that it couldn't be done. At the time of Raw, I was told that comics were a medium that is best printed on newsprint and meant only to be read while on the toilet, and then thrown out. That was the attitude of most of the underground cartoonists. When I walked into the New Yorker, I was told that the covers had to be pretty and witty comments on pleasures of tea in the afternoon, and everything else was just vulgar. When I wanted to do children's books, comics for kids, I was told that children's books could only be illustrated books, and that somebody had to write it and somebody else had to illustrate it. So when I turned to others, when I went to see other publishers, when I tried to convince them of something, I was told over and over again that there's no good reason to do what I wanted to do, to veer off any kind of established road. Why go explore some impenetrable territory when there was already a way to get from here to there? And all I knew is that I didn't know what I wanted to do and how I would get there, but I knew I would figure it out step by step, one mistake at a time. And I learned to embrace the terror. And as the chorus of naysayers grew, it made it clear in my mind that this was my thing. And if I didn't do it, nobody else would do it. And to focus on something and to give yourself the means to accomplish it, even if you don't know what it is really a heady feeling. So to you, I would say, yes, it's true, print is dead, and the economy has crashed, and why even try? But step out of the past, and then go find the uncharted clearing in the woods. Don't listen to the naysayers, and just listen to yourselves, because each one of you is a cartoonist, and your pens and pencils are magic wands, and you get an infinite number of wishes. So you're cartoonists, and you can build your own worlds. You can put all of your research and your thoughts and your emotion into your work with confidence, because if you don't write your stories, nobody else is going to do that story. And if you stay true to yourself, you will find your voice. And if you find your voice, there will be readers. And you can and you will create work that is worthy of all of your effort, and worthy of your family's trust in you, and worthy of all of your teachers, and of James, and of Michelle, and everything that has been invested in you. So here now, you're getting your diploma. Think of it as a map, and then go get lost.
So every year, part of CCS's tradition is we ask cartoonists to create a one-of-a-kind diploma. And this year's diploma, which I will unveil right now, not only am I going to unveil it, I'm going to present it. This is by a cartoonist. It's our biggest diploma. Did I mention that? Yeah. Very big. And it's by, it's colorful. Did I mention it? It's very colorful. Anyway, it's by, it's got dragons and crop circles, and crop circles. It explains a lot of mysteries, and but anyway, and it's not our crumb. It is by a cartoonist named Aaron Rainier, incredibly highly skilled, I'd like to present this degree to Francoise.
I am speechless. Thank you.
Now, to present your degrees, I'd like to introduce Anna Marino, our esteemed board member, and she'll be passing them out, so we'll get right to it.
We would like the graduates to stand up to receive their diploma. I will call your names with love and a strong accent. Hoping in the future many people in many parts of the world will say your names with love and a strong accent, and they enjoy your comics everywhere. Carl Antonovitz. Pat Barit. Lena Chandok. Andrew Christensen. Lauren Burks. Jesse Durona. Jonathan Fine. Beth Headland. Ben Ora. Benjamin Yurs. Nomi Kane. Josh Kramer. Jesse Mead. Carl Melford. Jacob Montgomery. Max Moss. Emily Sauter. Betsy Saulis. Paul Schwartz. Carol Thompson. Kevin Mouly. Jan Burger. Bailey Sharp. Fellow David Livens. Congratulations, Center for Cartoon Studies class of 2011. Please, this is an honor for us. We are so proud of you. We feel very honored to have all of you here, and I see a great future of Extron Accents spelling your name. And now, let's congratulate and let's celebrate. You are a graduate now. And please join us in the opening thesis reception in the Center for Cartoon Studies Gallery. It's an honor.